What we are doing differently, I think, than most of other companies is that we are fully open source. So we are actually pushing the open source boundaries and the ethos of how Bitcoin even started farther than any of the competitors on the market. And I think that it has proven to be historically the good thing, right? So for security, again, for the ethos of Bitcoin and crypto, and for all these almost like moral reasons, I would say.
Thank you, sir, for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yes. I always start with the same question, which is, please tell me your name and what you do.
I'm Matej Žák, and I'm the CEO of Trezor.
Very good, yes. And we'll get all into that. But first, let's start with a little bit of your history. Could you tell me kind of the path that you took to get to what you're doing today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been with Trezor for 7 years. I'm serving my third year as the CEO of the company, but I joined as a product manager. Actually, the first product manager the company had. I joined when the company was about 30 people. And yeah, we are pretty much growing steadily ever since. So we're more than 200 now. And yeah, it's been a pretty exciting journey. Funny enough, my sort of previous life, I studied music basically, so it's nothing in tech. I'm not an engineer.
Very cool.
That's maybe like a fun fact. But yeah, I was always interested in sort of entrepreneurship, and tech and engineering and innovation and all that stuff. So and startups. So I think that's one thing led to another. And product management is something that I truly love. Basically, building great products. And honestly, it's still something that I'm involved with in the company today. So I would say like we are pretty much like product-driven organization, and that's what the original founders I think wanted. They are built the same way, and that's I think why it has been working for us quite well as in the relationship, etc.
Very cool. Do you remember how you first got, or how you first noted Bitcoin and crypto? What was your first kind of foray into that?
So it was probably a couple of years before I joined the company. I didn't really understand sort of the why behind it, I would say. I just thought or heard, it's like some digital money, it sounds cool, so this is possible, but I didn't really, get it. I didn't have the aha moment back then. But then I joined the company, and that's only when I actually understood it, because, I started reading about it, and I've been working with the founders very closely, obviously since the very beginning, and still we work closely together. And so they were kind of great mentors in orange pilling me and onboarding me into the deeper whys. It was only with the job actually. So those 7 years ago, I would say, was the aha moment for me.
Very, very cool. Just as an aside, you said you studied music. What kind of music were you studying?
Yeah, so I studied classical guitar. So that was my sort of major. Then I went to music business. Actually, I have a master's from Berklee College of Music. But these days I mostly play jazz, I would say. But I'm sort of wannabe
cool.
jazz musician.
Very, very
so
cool.
we have a band, and I play with my friends who are actual professionals. And it's fun. I love it.
And you play the guitar in jazz? What do you play?
Both bass and guitar. So bass guitar and bass, I kind of switch whatever is needed.
That's awesome. I love jazz. Big fan.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Sonny Rollins, my favorite, I think.
Nice. Oh, nice.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's talk kind of broadly about crypto hardware wallets, and then we'll kind of focus more in on what you guys are doing over there at Trezor. So from my perspective in the news, I go to a lot of conferences, and I feel like I've noticed the hardware wallet space getting very crowded. Every time I go to a conference, there's at least one, maybe two hardware wallet providers that I've never heard of before. So basically, I want to know kind of why should I being a consumer, stick with Trezor over any of these other wallets, and maybe how should I choose one? Give me the Trezor pitch.
Of course. So maybe let me start by saying that competition is great, right? So it's ultimately good for you as the consumer, that there are more brands that are fighting for making the superior product. Therefore, I welcome competition in general. I think it's great. What we are doing differently, I think, than most of other companies is that we are fully open source. So we are actually pushing the open source boundaries and the ethos of how Bitcoin even started farther than any of the competitors on the market. And I think that it has proven to be historically the good thing, right? So for security, again, for the ethos of Bitcoin and crypto, and for all these almost like moral reasons, I would say. So that's one. Number two, we are the original sort of founders of the whole hardware wallet industry. So kind of the knowledge and know-how and the years of experience is simply there. And you don't have to trust me. You simply can, do your research and try our products, because we try to really be like very solid in everything we do, from the security, the privacy, to the user experience. We actually always talk about those being the three pillars of self-custody. And so, we are trying to push the boundaries in all three. And that's why you should consider us, basically. But again, I would say we are still a sort of like a niche, I would say, as an industry. I like to use this number that probably just 2% of all the crypto users are actually using hardware wallets. If you look
Really?
at the numbers if you look at the numbers, what Ledger sells and what we sold and all the smaller players, we are looking probably at max maybe 15 to 20 million devices, right? Whereas there is 600 million people in crypto, maybe more. But it's still single digits in terms of the people that we onboard into self-custody. So actually, from that perspective, we are kind of looking at it. Let's not even kill each other on in the industry. Again, competition is great, but I think we are mainly after the people that are on exchanges and are maybe even now in ETFs, right? Like indirect exposure to Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And I think that's the greater pitch that we are after ultimately.
Yeah. For me, when I am at these conferences and I see a new hardware wallet, the problem that I have, and I always imagine a person new to the space would have, is how to judge how secure this new company is. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've been here since 2017. I like to think I'm, reasonably knowledgeable about the space, but for something like a hardware wallet, I feel very incapable of kind of judging. Oh well, is this new company legitimate? I mean, is it an actual real product, or is it safe? And so I can imagine that many people have that similar problem.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where, quite honestly, I think we have solid brand that we care about very deeply, in the sense that we want to also communicate as transparently as possible. So, I mean, I can be quite frank here. Of course, security is sort of a moving target, and anybody in the industry knows that. You'll push the boundaries, but we can call secure, but then there'll be always some another way how to have, with enough resources, enough time to maybe pass some of the security measures. But if some vulnerabilities are found, we even proactively communicate it ourselves to the customers. So they are aware of this. That being said, we are a security industry, or we are a security company. So that's super important for us to talk about these things transparently. But also it's important to note that hardware wallets in general are like so much safer than any software wallets, or any like a hot wallets, etc. So and again, the most of the people are actually in the not so safe space, right? So sometimes you get a lot of discussions whether exactly which hardware wallet is the safer, but I would say it's still much safer than all the alternatives and the alternatives that are actually used in majority, right? But yeah, it's still a fair question, and I think everybody should do their homework, and and with the tools that we have today, AI, etc. So yeah, it's quite easy to do it.
Yeah. That is true, right? Just getting off of zero is probably more important than
exactly
worrying about that. Okay. Another trend that I've seen, again, this is maybe for people who are just kind of like really, really into crypto, so it's not necessarily the low-hanging fruit, but I've seen like the rise of these kind of so-called crypto phones, and some of the language that these crypto phones are using seems to me like they might be going after this similar kind of segment, almost like they want to become a crypto hardware wallet, or they're already vying for it right now. I was wondering if you perceive this. Do you see them as competitors, or is this like something kind of completely different?
I would say they're not on the high list or high up on the list of competition in that sense. I would say we are the bigger sort of threat threat to self-sovereignty, I would say, is the ETFs, for example, right? But I would say specifically what hardware wallets are great about, when you think about it, they are single purpose devices, and that's quite important. So they're actually on purpose, not super complicated devices that would have thousands of different features as your iPhone would have, or your smartphone. So I would say actually that's probably not a great idea to keep adding more and more sort of tech for a thing that is supposed to do just one thing only, and that's basically protecting your private keys and signing transactions, ultimately. So that's basically the two things that it's supposed to do. And creating and managing backups, of course, as well. But like those are the main things. And once you keep adding more tech, more by a closed source tech, because simply at the hardware level, and we can talk about it, why what we are also doing here differently is basically you are not even able to look under the hood. Even you as a manufacturer of these, let's say the crypto phones, how the things are wired. So yeah, I would say it's still single purpose devices are superior in terms of security and self-custody.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But again, you see some of this language, and we'll get to this later, but like these phones kind of talk about like, oh, we have a secure element, and this is the great way to, and yeah, I have reservations about the safety of that. Okay, one more general question, and then we'll move in to Trezor. One last comment. I think this is the second time you've mentioned the ETFs as kind of a major threat, and I really agree with you on this. I interviewed Eric Balkanis, the Bloomberg senior ETF analyst, and he said that the crypto industry as a whole is really not taking the ETFs as seriously as they should. Right, like the ETF industry revolutionized traditional finance, and a lot of the crypto people, like for example, the people that provide like wrapped Bitcoin products and stuff like that, or this, that, and the other, they are maybe a little too confident about their ability to compete with the ETFs, and so I would echo that sentiment that the ETFs really are probably one of the largest things that crypto people in the crypto industry are not taking seriously enough. But anyway, go ahead.
So sorry, no, go ahead with the question.
Okay, sorry. Anyway, so kind of related to that is, right, so ETFs, centralized exchanges, other custodial services, we seem to be kind of in an era of crypto convenience, I would say, and yeah, you and myself and others really have an important role in educating newcomers about the importance of self-custody, and especially like using hardware wallets, right? I think you have to kind of have one. Can you kind of tell me how do you communicate, how do you educate newcomers about using self-custody stuff? Because there's quite a lot of friction to using it, and it seems like a hard sell maybe to a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm a huge sort of free market maximalist, I would say, and that's, I think, what also explains why the hardware wallet and self-custody is still a minority, right? Like the numbers that we've talked about. I think that's exactly kind of the market tells what's happening in terms of the convenience and sort of the ease of onboarding, etc. But exactly, that's, I think, why we exist and why we are trying to educate and explain that self-custody is superior to just having this indirect exposure to the underlying asset, because, well, there are a couple sort of reasons, but let me maybe talk about some of them. So yeah, try to buy a coffee for your ETF, as the most primitive example. There's, I mean, Bitcoin has been, the innovation was also like a peer-to-peer payment, right? And we should not forget about that. It's not just store of value; it's also the peer-to-peer payment, but also sort of customer to business. We know it's possible now, and sort of for you to be able to spend it, it gets so much harder with ETFs, obviously. Then there's fees, right? If you self-custody Bitcoin yourself, you don't have to pay any sort of recurring fee. Of course, I mean, you have to purchase the hardware wallet, or you can, have the software wallet or whatever. But yeah, there is no recurring fee. Nobody's taking the cut out of it. And by the way, I like to say that it has been labeled by the traditional finance world as the drug money and Ponzi scheme, for the 15 years or 16 years, and then when the market cap grew so much, and suddenly the traditional finance world doesn't see it as a risk, but they see it as an opportunity, right? So they see it as, okay, how do we make money out of it? And of course, what they do the best is to be the intermediary and to be the custodian and charging the fees for it. So, and if you think about it, like how this whole industry started with the greatest financial crisis in the history of the capitalism in 2008. And the meltdown of the financial markets, etc., where these centralized institutions, heavily leveraged, lost everything that they claimed they had, and didn't even have it. That's when Bitcoin, was born out of all these pressures, and of course, like a technological advancement as well. But so it's kind of sad to see then that we would forget about all this and suddenly trust with this amazing technological advancement in money technology, that we would come back to the same roots where we would just trust the centralized finance that doesn't operate with sound money, right, and is heavily leveraged and all that stuff. That being said, this sell is not easy, right? I'm now talking about 10 minutes, and it's not super easy. You really need to get that aha moment we were talking about at the beginning. So yeah, it is hard, but I still believe it's worth trying to educate people.
Yeah. Do you have like a prepared little vignette or story that you tell to people about what a hardware wallet is? I'm just trying to imagine myself right now speaking to my mom. And explaining to her why she needs a hardware wallet, and how I might explain this to a layperson that's not, without having to use a lot of technological jargon and stuff like that. Is there some kind of way that you explain this to people who are completely unfamiliar with this stuff?
Of course, I mean, I have some experience with trying to explain it. I most often use the analogy of actual keys from your house or your car. So if you are the only person that has the key, then you have an access to your asset or to whatever value, again, house, property, car, motorbike, you name it. And other people don't have it, and therefore they don't have access to it. So that's one. Other is, Bitcoin being sort of the digital gold. So I always tell them, okay, now imagine you have a brick of gold at home, and you probably don't want other people to know about it. So there's a privacy aspect to it. And also the beauty of it is that you can use it in a digital way, and therefore you can purchase goods online for this. And that's where the consumer electronic device comes in, and it helps you to manage the keys, to sign transaction, to make sure you own it, or to prove that you own that, and you can spend the asset as well. So would that work for your mom?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I was trying to. It's hard, I think, for a lot of, at least my parents are boomers. I think the biggest threat for anyone online is going to be someone kind of getting into your computer, right? Like there's very little physical people breaking into your home and physically taking your computer like that. But I mean, it's trivial basically, right? To do that on the internet. And so the hardware wallet to me is kind of like an anchor, right? It anchors your computer into the physical world. And so then if somebody wants to kind of get your stuff, they can look at the stuff on your computer and you're like, oh, look, this guy has whatever, a Bitcoin. They can't do anything about it until they can actually grab it, right? And so then that really cuts off the 99.9% of the attacks. But I don't know if she would understand that. So I something like that.
Yeah, no, but absolutely. Like the physical part of it is important as well in terms of, it's not connected to the internet, which is sometimes harder to explain, but yeah, that's simply the reality. It doesn't touch the internet. So that's where the security part comes in. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, kind of connected to this, my next question. You recently launched the Trezor Safe 7. I watched the live stream. It was last week. Really liked it. Watched the whole live stream. I thought it was cool that you kind of, in my mind, you began the live stream with something not necessarily connected to crypto at all, really, but it is. But it was basically reminding people that kind of crypto and what this industry is all about is it can help people. Often people who are like very vulnerable. It can help preserve wealth. It can help move and carry your wealth under like the most extreme of circumstances. In this case, like war. And so I thought that was a really good way to start the live stream because, when I got into this, you get into it, at least, for me, I'm speaking for myself and maybe others, you have these kind of ideological reasons, right? And then at least myself, I get a little lost in the kind of the tech and the speculation and the kind of everything. So I was wondering if that's why you started the live stream like that, as a kind of like reminder, like, hey, by the way, this is actually can really, really, really help people who are in trouble and can make kind of a meaningful impact on people's lives.
That's exactly why I started like that. I sort of built a story on the monetary reform, the so-called monetary reform that happened here in 1953, which destroyed people's savings. Basically, new currency got printed, people had to exchange it at horrible rates, and most of the savings basically disappeared. And so I kind of asked myself the question, how come there are so many Bitcoin companies and innovators in this tiny country of just a million people, right? Like that speak only Czech, by the way, so it's not even transferable to other countries. How come? And then I think there's a lot of skepticism, towards the establishment because of what happened here in the history. So that was the reason. And secondly, and maybe more importantly, these things still happen in today's lives for many people around the world, right? And we are, as a global company, we are selling everywhere. So it's not just that I would be selling it to sort of some, like European countries or European customers. It's happening everywhere. And by the way, speaking of Europe, there is a raging war in Europe even today, and nobody could have imagined that would be the case, just a couple years ago. So those things, I thought it is really important to kind of remind all of us why we are here. I also specifically kind of use on purpose, whenever I talk about the industry, I say Bitcoin and crypto, right? I try to make sure that it is understood that there is a difference, that I understand the difference, and that people should also care for the difference. And exactly, there are different use cases, which, by the way, speculation in crypto is one of them. And as a capitalist and as an entrepreneur, I'm not going to stop you. It's perfectly fine, but we should also be aware of some amazing properties of Bitcoin and the store of value, store of wealth, and why it's important, why you should care, and why you should care also for the self-custody part. Because exactly as we already touched upon, banks go out of business all the time, right? Like when I did the research and tried to connect the past, the history to today's world, I found out that somewhere between 20 and 30,000 banks went out of business in the last 100 years, so which is crazy. So it's not even nations that would have to fail. It's also the private banks as well, which would impact you probably pretty bad, right? So recently, what was the Silicon Valley Bank? I think it was the one last case,
SVB,
literally in Silicon Valley in the US, so these things happen all the time. So and like you as a customer don't have to care unless you do, or until you do, when this comes, when this hits you, right? So, and that's why I try to connect it to your personal freedoms and why you should care for self-custody and self-sovereignty.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that was a great way to start it. It kind of reminded me a little bit of how gold was seized in America at one point. And most of that seizure was just the government going to banks and being like, give us all your customers' gold. They weren't going door to door to take people's gold, because that's just would have taken too much money and time and effort. They just went to the custodians and they're like, we want your gold on behalf of your customers. Give it to us. And they were like, okay, here you go. So, I mean, if you're custodying your own Bitcoin, they're not going to really probably go door to door to take everybody's hardware wallet or this, that, and the other. They'll just go to BlackRock or,
Exactly. It's virtually impossible for anybody to add the spread individuals, because, by the way, we don't even know who these individuals are, right? Like, we don't have any customer accounts. That's why the privacy aspect of self-custody is so important. Because even if you come with, guns at us, we cannot give you the data because we don't have it, right? So and by the way, what happened in US was the inspiration for me also to think about, okay, what happened here? Because it doesn't, the sort of the US story is quite famous, but I thought, well, it's happening everywhere. It's like it has happened at some point, pretty much in every country in the world, and therefore, for being Czech and a Czech-based company, that's why I wanted to connect it to the events of 1953 here.
Yeah, very, very cool. Okay, so the Safe 7 had a couple, I think, to me at least, had two very, very big features. We're going to go through those now. The first one is I don't know how you pronounce this, Tropico 1? Is that it? Is that right?
Yeah, Tropic 01, yes.
Tropic 01. Okay. This is a transparent and audible secure element. And I really liked kind of the story that was told about this, right? This product was born out of a bad experience that you guys had when you were searching for a secure element to use. Could you kind of retell that story now about like what happened that kind of gave you the impulse to start this, and then the process of developing this thing, Tropic 01, and then what it is and all of that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me maybe start with what secure elements are. So those are specialized chips that are in your secure devices. By the way, not just hardware wallets, but they are in passports, SIM cards, credit cards, you name it, right? So they're quite small, and they protect whatever information, whatever data is on the device, and they are built in a way that you cannot really physically extract the data from them, right? So even if you put it into specialized labs and you try to attack it with all kind of specialized, super expensive equipment, they are designed to protect that secret. So that's quite important for the physical type of attacks specifically. Now we wanted to add, many years ago, or let's say 5 years ago, wanted to add a secure element to the new hardware wallet that we were working on. But we realized we have to sign an NDA. So that you could call it sort of the opposite of what open source is. Because you try to, as a manufacturer, work with the supplier of that chip. And they will tell you, we will supply it to you, but you have to sign this non-disclosure agreement that you cannot really talk about any of the documentation. If we find any problems with the chips, you're not allowed to talk about it. And that's exactly what happened to us. So within days, some of our smartest cryptographers found a way how they could actually extract the secret, not even with some special equipment, but just like a cryptography trick.
Oh no.
Yeah, some like very, very easy type of attack. And then we came back to the manufacturer and said, look guys, this chip is used by our competitors, and we would like to tell them that they have like a big hole in their security model. And they said, no, you cannot tell anybody because you signed the NDA, and we sort of disallow you to do it. And if you do, then you would be sued by us. And mind you, those are huge companies, it would basically destroy us, at that point. So we were not really able to even push that because it's like a legal contract at that point. And so we thought that was very wrong because they didn't even want to sort of collaborate on improving it, or there was no sort of interest for them to talk to these customers and tell them proactively, hey everybody, we have a problem here, et cetera, right? Because probably millions of these chips are floating in all kind of products around the world, right? Not just hardware wallets, but anywhere else, which is kind of stupid. And then, so it's basically this whole industry is sort of, we call it security by obscurity, right? So they're trying to kind of hush everybody and do it like that. And we thought, well, that's morally wrong. It's so against the ethos of crypto and Bitcoin, how the whole industry started again. So the founders of Trezor said, well, let's try to build our own secure elements. Which, by the way, is extremely hard, expensive, and it's really next level of sort of difficulty to bring that to life. Yeah, but we are extremely happy that we actually made it, or the Tropic Square, that's the company. By the way, Tropic is an abbreviation for truly open IC, like integrated circuit.
Okay, nice.
So that's where Tropic name comes from. But we are extremely happy that they made it, and now it is featured in the Trezor Safe 7, our new hardware wallet, which makes it, from that standpoint of view, the most open source hardware wallet in the market today, because typically these secure elements are not open source at all.
So how did this work on a kind of a more technical level? Was this a spin-off of Trezor? Was it the same kind of employees? How did this?
So we have a holding of companies. It's called Satoshi Labs, and Tropic Square is one of them, and Trezor is the other company. And there are actually two more, Vexel and Invity. All of those are companies close to the mission of Satoshi Labs, to basically like fortify individual freedoms, etc., etc. So those are kind of a group of companies that are working quite closely together.
Very, very cool. All right. And why is it important that the secure element is transparent and auditable, i.e. open source? Why does this matter? Other than like an NDA kind of hiding it, is there any other reason for that?
The main problem is that the probability of somebody else finding the same vulnerability that we found in that specific chip is pretty high, because it was not like a specialized equipment that we would have to use. It's not like that we would, we're trying to bombard it like in some specialized labs and spend like $1 million on trying to extract the secret. It was like a simple software almost attack that you could call it that way. And the probability that there are some hackers in the world that would find the same way is actually quite high, right? Because again, the attack was not sophisticated. Now, if you look at it from the consumer perspective, you would probably want to be informed when you are making the decision exactly which hardware wallet, for example, to buy. You would like to know whether there are some issues or there are some form of attacks that could happen to this device, right? So that's why the sort of closed sourceness or the closed source nature of this is wrong, and where the open source is superior, because thousands of security experts, security experts around the world can actually audit the sort of the soundness and the quality of the implementation. And sometimes, by the way, this is some people could say, well, how can I audit it when I'm not engineer? Of course, like it's not for you, but there are thousands and thousands of experts that actually proactively and like ethical hackers, that actually try to get into these things, and that's your security. That's the security model.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine like university masters and PhD students wanting to make a name for themselves by finding some vulnerability.
And by the way, the secure element of Tropic has been actually pen tested and tested heavily in labs as well, and specialized labs that are actually trying to break it.
Nice, very, very cool. Okay, and then the other big feature that I was surprised at is you added wireless connectivity. And so to me, I was wondering, how do you balance the kind of increased convenience, obviously, of having a wireless connection with also adding a potential new attack surface, right? Wireless is definitely going to be more vulnerable than like a wire.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, the convenience is a big part. There are also practical reasons for the Apple users, because you could not really use the hardware wallet or our hardware wallets with a cable with an iPhone. That's simply the reality.
Oh, really?
And yet,
wow.
Yeah. It's not possible because you would again have to work very closely with Apple. Again, under NDAs and all that stuff, so you would not be able to connect it through the iPhone. So yeah, Bluetooth is or some wireless technologies is the only way, and so that's why we chose to do it as well. As you said, it's simply more convenient. You can connect it to all kind of devices now, the iPhones, iPads, but also all kind of desktop computers as well. And specifically, because you're right, there is potentially, let's say, it brings another sort of possible surface for all kind of attacks. But we actually created something we call Trezor Host Protocol, which makes the connection super secure, and it's encrypted, etc. So it's virtually impossible to attack it and get any sort of communication details from the device communicating with your phone, etc. So that's pretty secure. That being said, if still anybody would be worried about that, the device still works perfectly fine with cable as well. So you can actually simply turn off the Bluetooth and you can use it in the cabled manner.
Yeah. I'd also like to point out again, just what I reiterated before, to me, the biggest benefit of a hardware wallet is that it keeps the internet at bay, right? It's less of you're less worried about physical attacks, I feel like, than you are about attacks that are going to drain your account through some website or something like that. And so,
exactly.
It's to me, it's less of an issue because of that. Okay, cool. I have one last question. This is just like a pet peeve of mine that I've had for a while, but like, so here I've got one. It's unopened. This is the Safe 5, I believe. Here we go. And I was just wondering, so obviously the device is secure, but I always wondered about these packaging, right? Like how worried do I have to be about like people tampering with this or like I don't know, getting into the device and maybe doing some weird stuff and that kind of thing. I've always just wondered about that.
Yeah, you should be worried. So whenever there is whenever you would find that the packaging has been tampered with, just reach out to our support and we will help you. We'll get you new device or whatever the situation, specific case. But yeah, we actually do quite a lot of work on all kind of anti-tampering sort of protections, starting with the packaging. Now for TS7V, Trezor Safe 7, we have even like a branded foil. Again, that will make it a bit more harder for somebody to reproduce. Specifically, there is exactly this like peel-offs, and we have some stickers on it as well, which basically once you take it out, you cannot really put it back on. So those are kind of physical, also anti-tamper sort of proofs. Then we have some software ones as well. So we have some authenticity checks during the onboarding. But yeah, it's important. It's important. Again, it's a security device. So that's why you should care.
Is there like a best practices of where you should buy these? Right? Like, is there like obviously you shouldn't buy it from some guy who's selling it, on the street at a conference or something like that, right? Like that seems like a bad place to buy it. But I see these being sold by like resellers on Amazon, for example, or this. I mean, is there like a best practices for how to buy a hardware wallet?
Absolutely. You should start with our own site, Trezor.io. That's our main sort of channel. But if you want to buy locally from resellers or even big marketplaces such as Amazon or Best Buy, then you can do it as well. But specifically for the resellers, always check our website, because we have a list of official resellers. Those are vetted resellers that you can be 100% sure they're on our site and they're not trying to sell you some counterfeit or anything like that. So yeah, always check that.
All right. Well, thank you very much, sir. Is there anything else you want to address or talk about or plug before we go?
I think, as we said, first, thanks for having me. I enjoyed the conversation, and yes, please try to get into the real reasons why we are here, why Bitcoin, why crypto, and why self-custody matter, because I think it will be increasingly more and more actually important to care about these things. So please do your research, and it's actually quite enjoyable, because at least for me, it has taught me so much about world in general. I know it sounds maybe cheesy, but yeah, it's like just by doing research on around Bitcoin, and I recently actually read a book from Ray Dalio, how countries go broke. I think it's a fairly new book, and it's just like super exciting read. It's not about Bitcoin at all. I mean, he mentioned Bitcoin probably like 2-3 times in the whole thing, but it is so interesting, because you kind of see so obviously, Bitcoin fixes this, right? So yeah, I would say it's an enjoyable sort of educational journey that I could recommend to everybody.
Yeah, I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with that, and it's a Bitcoin especially crypto in general, though, it really makes people wrestle with like what is money for the first time in your life, right? And and
exactly.
the government's role in this kind of thing, and it is
Exactly.
quite like a fundamental thing, which makes it a difficult but satisfying thing to kind of think about. All right, well, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.